Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. I see you all trickling in. Drop your city in the comments. Where are you tuning in from? Tonight's story. It's a hard one to tell. It started the way so many nightmares do, in the quiet of my own home. I'd just come back from the hospital, the sterile scent of antiseptic clinging to my clothes after a 12-hour vigil by my father's bedside. He'd had a stroke. I was bone-tired, my soul scraped raw with worry. I opened the fridge, the cool air a brief comfort on my flushed face, just wanting a bottle of water. That's when I heard it from upstairs, a woman's laugh. Low, intimate, and terrifyingly familiar. It wasn't mine. My life, up until that point, had been a carefully curated picture of Charleston charm. I'm Amelia, and I own a small bookstore downtown called The Page Petal, a cozy haven of literature and fresh flowers. My husband, Mark, was the other half of our perfect portrait. A financial advisor with old money charisma, he was a pillar in our community, a man everyone trusted. We lived in a beautiful historic home south of Broad Street, the kind tourists photograph, with a sprawling porch and ancient oak trees dripping with Spanish moss. Our life was stable, comfortable, and I thought, deeply happy. My family was my anchor. My father, a gruff but loving man, had built a successful hardware empire from a single storefront. My older brother Liam was the pragmatic engineer, living up in Charlotte. And then there was Chloe, my younger sister. 10 years my junior, she was the family's free spirit, always drifting between jobs, always needing a little help. Mark and I had often supported her, paying her rent when she was in between gigs, or co-signing on a car loan. Mark, ever the generous husband, would just smile and say, "That's what family is for, honey." The red flags were there, of course. They always are, aren't they? Looking back, they flutter like tiny crimson warnings in the wind. There were Mark's late nights at the office, explained away by a volatile market. There were the hushed phone calls he'd take on the porch, his back to me. When I'd ask, he'd just wave a dismissive hand. "Just a nervous client, Amelia. You know how they are." Chloe, meanwhile, had started dressing in designer clothes I knew she couldn't afford, and was suddenly taking weekend trips to Savannah and Asheville. When I questioned her, she'd just laugh it off. Mark's been giving me some amazing investment tips. He's a genius, Ames. I'd felt a prickle of unease, but I'd pushed it down. It was Mark. It was Chloe. I trusted them. The biggest warning was my father's health. He'd been under immense stress. He'd made Mark the executor of his estate and given him power of attorney to help manage the business finances, trusting my husband's expertise. But lately, Dad had seemed agitated, confused. He'd call me, muttering about accounts that didn't add up, about suppliers complaining about late payments. Mark would always smooth it over. "Your dad's just getting older, sweetheart. He's forgetting things. Don't you worry. I've got it all under control." The stroke came a week later. The doctors said it was brought on by extreme sudden stress. That night, standing in my silent kitchen, the glow of the open refrigerator casting long shadows on the floor, I saw it. Tucked behind the milk was a bottle of Veuve Clicquot, the expensive champagne Mark knew I disliked. It was Chloe's favorite. Then came the laugh from our bedroom. My bedroom. My heart didn't just break, it detonated. Every cell in my body screamed to run, to hide, but a cold, terrifying calm settled over me. I quietly closed the fridge, my hand trembling, and crept up the stairs. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. I heard his voice, a low murmur. "We have to be more careful, Chloe. With her dad in the hospital, she's fragile." And then her voice, laced with a smugness that made my blood run cold. "Don't worry, she'd never suspect a thing. She trusts us too much." I didn't confront them. Not then. I backed away, silent as a ghost, and slipped out of my own house. I spent that night in my car, parked by the waterfront, watching the ships glide into the harbor as my world capsized. The betrayal was a physical thing, a crushing weight on my chest. It wasn't just an affair. It was a conspiracy. His words, "She's fragile," and hers, "She trusts us too much," echoed in my mind. They weren't just cheating on me, they were managing me. The champagne, my father's stress, their hushed conversations, it all clicked into a horrifying mosaic. The next morning, I called my brother, Liam. I told him everything, my voice a ragged whisper. He was silent for a long moment before saying, "I never trusted him, Ames. He's too smooth." Liam drove down from Charlotte that afternoon. He was my rock, his steady presence a balm on my shattered nerves. We didn't storm in with accusations. We became investigators. While I played the part of the grieving, worried wife, Liam started digging. He used his own savings to hire a private investigator. Within a week, we had photos, Mark and Chloe, kissing in a boutique hotel lobby, holding hands over dinner at a restaurant I'd always wanted to try. The proof of the affair was sickeningly concrete, but it was just the tip of the iceberg. The real rot was in the finances. With Dad incapacitated, Liam petitioned for temporary co-conservatorship, citing our father's vulnerability and our concerns. The judge, seeing the medical reports, granted it. That gave us access. What we found was a methodical, ruthless plundering of my father's life's work. Mark had created a series of shell corporations. The most insulting one was named MC Holdings. For years, he'd been siphoning money from Dad's business accounts into his own, dressing them up as payments to phantom vendors or consulting fees. Chloe was his accomplice, her name on several accounts, receiving regular dividend payments. They had stolen nearly $2 million. They had bled my father's company dry, creating the very stress that had put him in the hospital. They had been funding their secret life with my family's legacy. The anger I felt was a clean, pure flame. It burned away the grief and the shock, leaving behind a steely resolve. I wanted justice, but I also wanted them exposed. I wanted our world, the world they had so carefully curated on a foundation of my trust, to see them for who they really were. And I knew exactly where it needed to happen. The annual Charleston Preservation Gala was in 3 weeks. It was the premier social event of the year, a night where the city's elite gathered to celebrate history and community. And this year, the gala was honoring my family for its decades of contributions to Charleston. The keynote speaker? My husband, Mark, who was also the event's co-chair. It was perfect. Liam and I worked tirelessly. We compiled every piece of evidence, bank statements with highlighted transfers, corporate registration documents for MC Holdings, screenshots of damning emails between them discussing how to hide the transactions. And, for the grand finale, the PI's most incriminating photos. Liam, with his engineering mind, helped me put it all into a crisp, devastating PowerPoint presentation. I spent hours practicing my speech, my voice growing stronger with each run-through. I was no longer the fragile, trusting wife. I was the arbiter of their downfall. I visited my dad every day, holding his hand, telling him I was fixing things. He couldn't speak much, but he could squeeze my hand, and in his eyes, I saw he understood. The night of the gala was surreal. The ballroom was breathtaking, filled with glittering chandeliers and the city's most influential people. I wore a simple, elegant black dress, funeral attire for my old life. Mark, ever the charmer, was at the door, greeting guests. My sister Chloe clinging to his arm like a trophy. She wore a diamond necklace I now knew my father's money had paid for. When they saw me, they rushed over, their faces masks of concern. "Amelia, are you sure you're up for this?" Mark murmured, placing a hand on my back that now felt like a spider. "Of course," I said, my smile as sharp as glass. I wouldn't miss honoring our family for the world. After the dinner, it was time for the speeches. Mark took the stage to roaring applause. He spoke eloquently about integrity, legacy, and family values, his hypocrisy so profound it was almost art. My stomach churned, but my resolve held. Then he said the words I'd been waiting for. And now, I'd like to invite my beautiful wife, Amelia, to say a few words. Honey? I walked to the podium, the spotlight warm on my face. I could feel hundreds of eyes on me. I looked at Mark and Chloe, sitting at the head table, beaming with pride. I took a deep breath. Thank you, Mark, I began, my voice clear and steady. You spoke of legacy and family. And tonight, I want to show everyone the true legacy you and my sister Chloe have been building. I nodded to Liam at the tech booth. The massive screen behind me, which had been showing the gala's logo, flickered. The first slide appeared. A romantic email from Mark's work account to Chloe's, detailing plans for a trip to Paris. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. Mark's smile froze. The next slide. A bank statement from my father's business showing a $50,000 transfer to MC Holdings. Then another and another. Slide after slide, the evidence cascaded onto the screen, the registration for the shell company with their names on it. The final slide was a series of photos, Mark and Chloe kissing passionately, their faces clear as day. The ballroom fell into a dead, shocked silence, punctuated by a single, horrified gasp from Chloe. I leaned into the microphone. For 2 years, my husband and my sister have been having an affair, funded by the systematic theft of nearly $2 million from my father, whose recent stroke was a direct result of the financial ruin they orchestrated. That is their legacy: fraud, betrayal, and deceit. Chaos erupted. Mark lunged toward the stage, his face purple with rage, but security intercepted him. Chloe was openly sobbing, burying her face in her hands as people stared, their expressions a mixture of pity and disgust. I stood there for a moment, watching the beautiful illusion they had built shatter into a million pieces. Then, I calmly walked off the stage, past the shocked faces and frantic whispers, and out into the cool Charleston night, breathing free for the first time in years. The aftermath was swift and brutal. The story was the talk of the town, a scandal that rocked our quiet community. Mark and Chloe were publicly disgraced, but more importantly, they faced legal consequences. With the evidence we presented, the district attorney pressed charges for fraud and embezzlement. Mark lost his job, his reputation, and his freedom. He's currently serving a 7-year sentence. Chloe took a plea deal, turning state's evidence against him in exchange for probation and a restitution order I know she'll be paying for the rest of her life. I filed for divorce, and thanks to South Carolina's at-fault laws and the mountain of evidence, the proceedings were quick. I got the house, and more importantly, my maiden name back. My father is recovering slowly. The stolen money, most of it, has been traced and frozen, and we're working to rebuild his business. The betrayal from my sister is a wound that may never fully heal, a ghost that will always linger. We haven't spoken since that night. But in losing the life I thought I had, I found a strength I never knew existed. I run my bookstore, I'm helping my dad, and I'm slowly, carefully, building a new life. One based on truth, not lies. I've learned that sometimes, the most beautiful facades hide the deepest rot, and that burning it all down is the only way to let the light in. If this story hit home for you, if you've ever had to find your strength in the ashes of betrayal, hit the like button and comment 1 below. And if you have a story of your own, please share it. You never know who you might be helping. Don't forget to subscribe for more.